Hello, my icebergs. Thank you for clicking on the thumbnail and welcome to the Iceberg Show with Saurabh Puranik, a place to find your inspiration. Please wait, I want to save your time. So check the description box and see the interesting questions I ask in this interview. You can watch those questions that solve your problem, or you can watch those questions that will give you a different perspective in life. So, guys, spend some time to save your time. Let's grow together. Thank you, Major Deepak. It's an honor to welcome you on the Iceberg Show.
Thank you, Saurabh. I'm delighted to be here on the show.
Yes. I hope that you are comfortable because you are standing, so that will not be a problem with you.
I think in these days of pandemic where everybody is working from home, where there isn't much scope for you to go out and exercise and all. Okay, I think one of the best things that I have taken up for myself is standing and doing calls. And I think many others who are out there who are standing, I think that's a great way of ensuring your body is always in movement.
That's a great advice, sir. Yeah, for all the listeners, this is going to be a great episode with lot of goosebumps. Although I don't know his answers, but I'm sure that after watching it, you will surely see a spark within you. And this is also a special episode for me because the way he connected with me and made his brother, it's really a heart touching and it's a spiritual moment for me, and I'm really grateful for that. And thank you, Major, for the same.
It's a delight for me, Saurabh. I'm loving what you're doing. And I think just these conversations that we are having, I think I'm just hoping that it touches people, inspires people somewhere, someplace to do something different.
Definitely. So let's begin this episode with your Iceberg story. So I know that you have been through a rigorous course, and in Indian Army, you called a cradle of leadership, that is National Defence Academy. So could you please tell us about how it shaped your career and what was your experience?
Yeah, great question. Saurabh. And as I'm even hearing that question, I'm just becoming present that today morning, I was seeing the live passing out parade of the 140th course of the National Defence Academy. And for me, I almost had tears and a lot of goosebumps that I was having. Because 22 years back, I was passing out and in the same white dress that they passed out in today. It's called the White Patrol. So as you asked me, there are 2-3 ways in which it shaped me. Okay, the first way that it shaped me was that before joining the National Defence Academy, I was just a boy who was carefree without a sense of responsibility. I went to school not because I wanted to go and study, but because if I didn't go to school, my parents would give me a kick, especially my father's kick was really hard. Okay. I did my tuitions because I did my tuitions because my mother would almost drop me at that tuition place and pick me up. Okay. And I did my homework because if I didn't do it, I would either get caned, and those are the times when all of us used to be beaten, right? Nowadays it doesn't happen. But I would either get caned by the headmaster or made to stand out of class by the teacher. So that was that boy who led his life like that before the National Defence Academy. And now when I went into the National Defence Academy, I think one big thing happened, which was my wanting to run away from there. And that was the time there was a serious conversation with my father. And in that conversation, he just made one point clear. He said, till now, we were responsible for your life. And we made all your decisions. You could easily come back and tell us, you did this right or you did this wrong. But he shared that from here on, everything that you do is your responsibility. Your life is your problem. You can make it a great opportunity, or you can consider it a problem and run away from it. Okay, and I think that made me take my life in my hands for the first time. Before that, it was like, I just want to play and my life is in their hands. But for the first time, I took that in my hands. So that's the first thing that I'd like to share that shifted. The second thing that I'd like to shift is, I don't know how many of the viewers and whether you personally have visited the National Defence Academy. Okay.
No.
You haven't, okay. But whenever you do visit it, it is probably one of the finest institutions in the world. It has a campus size more than 8,000 acres, which has got even hills and lakes inside the campus. And it's got scores, it's got dozens of football fields and basketball courts and volleyball courts and all of that. And I think it's one of the most finest institutions in the world where a person can do their undergraduate program. So inside of that place, whether you call flying an aircraft or horse riding or playing golf or doing water skiing, anything that you want is possible out there. So I think that kind of an exposure, as somebody who came from a very middle class background, I just didn't have an exposure. And when I went through that, it really opened my eyes. I was doing so many things I could not have dreamt of doing. Okay. So it was one of the finest educator experiences for me. And the third thing which I would like to share is that inside of that, it also shaped my character. Okay. And what I mean by character is when I went in there, of course, I took it as a challenge that I have to somehow stay on and pass out. But somewhere as I went through that journey, something transformed in me. Okay. And rather than being a victim who was taking everything in life, I began to decide that this is what I want in life. So even before I was graduating from the National Defence Academy, I had already decided I want to move into the special forces. Okay. So that shaping that happens from a child to a man, that shaping that happens, okay, I think that is what became possible at the National Defence Academy. When you step out of there, you're a man who can face any situation in any part of his life, in any part of the world. So I think that's how it transformed my life.
That's really great. So you also served in the elite force, that is 9 Para SF. So what was your moment in life where you transformed into a commando, and how a commando got unlocked within yourself? Can you please talk about that?
Wonderful. Thank you for asking that question. Right, and especially why I like this question is because what is that moment where that commando got unlocked? Okay, I think where that commando got unlocked was a particular night in my third semester in National Defence Academy. Okay, so I was the kind of boy who was always running. I had chosen to stay on, but even as I chose to stay on in National Defence Academy, I was still always in survival mode. Run away from punishment, somehow escape. Today also I escape from punishment. Tomorrow also, I escape from punishment another day. So it's constantly moving, escaping and moving and surviving. Okay. And inside of that, when I was in that mode, the world also behaved like that. It would always come down on me, punish me, abuse me, all of that. And one day when I was in my third semester, I can recall that particular night, okay, where it was probably around 10:30 or 11 at night. The lights were off, okay, and I had done some mistake or something I had done wrong, and there were two seniors who were really kicking me. One was almost like hitting me with a hockey stick, and one was like kicking me with a boot, okay. And before that, I would allow people to do that with me, to manhandle me, to hit me. But on that particular night, what happened is, as they were doing that, suddenly one of them kicked me hard, and that boot hit my back really hard, in pain. I was in pain. Okay, as I'm sharing this, even now I can feel that pain. And that moment, it was like some switch went on. You can either say circuit went off or a switch came on, right? A light came on, right? And I think it was a release of anger. Okay. And in that moment, I turned and I said, "You're not going to touch me." Right? And in Hindi, I said, "Chhune ka nahi," right? Okay. And that came with a certain force. And it said, "You want to punish me? Yeah, whatever you want me to do, rolling, this, that, and the whole host of punishments in India." But in that moment, I drew my boundaries. Okay. I said, "This is my boundary. You don't cross that boundary." And I decide my boundary. And once I decide my boundary and I decide this is how my life will be, that is how my life will be. Nobody will violate my boundary or get me to do what they want me to do. I will do what I want to do. And I think that boundary setting for me, that whole night I got punished, right? Because they also felt it almost like humiliating, right? A junior talking back at them. And in the army, that's not an easy thing to take. But I think when in that moment, I set my boundaries. And from that moment, I decided that now, whatever I'm going to do in life, it's going to be with that energy of me deciding what I want to do. These are my boundaries and I'm going to accomplish what I want. Okay. And in that moment, I think what also came up was a huge sense of pride. So till third semester, I was like the boy who would get punished because his uniform was not proper, who would be late in classes. There were so many things that this boy, because survival, no, it's okay if I get punished also, it's okay if my dress is not okay. That was okay. But I think that day, when I said, I decide what happens in my life, I decide whether I give the permission to somebody to reach a situation where they need to punish me or not. Okay. And that day when I took that stand for myself, from that day onwards, I started ensuring that whatever about me, I would ensure I would take pride in it, whether it's my uniform, whether it's being on time, whether it's completing my homework, whether whatever assignment task given to me, am I taking it with the greatest power? Right? And I think that was the day that Commando got unlocked. Because if that would not have happened, I would not have had the courage to say, I'm going to opt for 9 para commando, because people dread opting for the para commandos, right? Because it's not an easy life. The selection is among the toughest in the world. And on top of that, once you get selected, the life is not easy. A commando's life is one of the toughest lives in the world, right? Okay, so in both situations, selection also tough, life also tough. So not many people go for it. Okay. But I think once this got unlocked for me, okay, thereafter, I think all these choices in life have been natural for me. Okay, I didn't feel that I needed to get any special energy, because that's the way I operate. If I'm going to lead my life, I will take that choice which feels right for me. Why? Because it feels right for me, not because others tell me what to do or what not. Okay, so I think that moment, that night is when that commando got done.
So, but how was your first experience in the combat, and how did that experience change over time? Can you please talk about that?
Yeah. So I think even when I speak about my first situation in combat, before that was this entire probation. Okay. And in that probation, there was only one thing that I knew. And if you ask most people who have got selected into the special forces, you'll realize it's a very common mindset, which is, I will die, but I won't give up. Right? I will die, but I won't give up. It is like, sometimes you can see this bulldog, right? It will cling on to something, and you can hit it, you can do anything with that dog, beat it, anything, but once it is clenched onto something, it will not let go. You can shoot it, but it will not let go. Right? And for many people who've successfully got selected, that's how it has been. They have been ready to give anything and everything, right, for stepping into the special forces, right? Okay, so that was the mindset with which I went into, for my probation into 9 para commando. And I think then once you go with that kind of a mentality, nothing is tough. You always feel, oh, only so much. You can make it even tougher. You can make it enough tougher, because in your mind, I can go even more. I can stretch myself even more. Why? Because for you, the ultimate is, I'm ready to die for this, right? And the moment that kind of a thought comes in, right, nothing is difficult for you in life. And if you look at all spaces, I mean, the commandos is one thing. You look at IAS, you look at anything, anywhere anybody is accomplished, all these startup founders and all, what kind of challenges they've gone through. But once they say that whatever happens, giving up is not an option, it's off the table, then life changes. Then everything becomes positive. Yeah. So that's one thing, right? And the second thing what I want to share is, when I did go into my first combat, right, after successfully completing the probation, I think in that moment, what I realized was, I remember this, my instructor who was in NDA, he was my team commander in that operation. He was the man who inspired. His name is, I'm good to share his name. His name was Colonel Jha, and his values were exemplary. So more than anything else which inspired me to go to 9 para, I found that this man, Colonel Jha, whatever said and done, his values, he would never compromise. And for me, that is what 9 para stood for. Right? Because he was 9 para for me. Right? In NDA, he was the one who was posted from 9 para. And I could see his values, his commitment. Okay. And for me, automatically, that is what 9 para stood for. Okay. That those highest values is what 9 para is. Okay. Now, I was so fortunate that he was there in the unit. He had been posted back to the unit after his tenure in NDA, just at the point when I was, I had completed probation. I was in. So he was my team commander. And I remember, I thought I'm an officer. I'm with this team that I'm the decision maker. And I was a young lieutenant with hardly maybe about 6 months of service. And out of that 6 months, 6 months were in probation. So I was probably in the 7th or 8th month. So when I came into that operation, I saw firefight started already. They had spotted 2-3 terrorists. They had opened fire. So there was a firefight happening between our team and the terrorists. And I was deployed on a hill ridge, on a ridge, and the firefight was happening below. And on the other side of the ridge, I suddenly saw some terrorists. Okay. And the moment I saw them, and I saw in binocular clearly they had weapons and all, we knew they were terrorists, right? Okay. I immediately said, let's open fire. Okay. I thought I was an officer, open fire. And I remember the rocket was fired, and immediately on the radio said, all my seniors, including this officer Colonel Jai, he came and he said, what the hell happened? And there were a lot of abuses that came in. You didn't inform us what you were doing. Who told you to take that decision? Right? Okay. And I remember a lot of chatter happened, right? Because I was just too excited. Okay, so I think when I went through that entire experience, I remember I committed a lot of mistakes, taking action without informing people. Okay, becoming very excited in the face of the enemy. Okay, not knowing what detailed I had prepared myself. In fact, at that time, what had happened was I had used some equipment without checking whether that equipment was robust, and some of it tore. So in between, some of my things were dropping off. Okay, right. So there were many lessons that I picked up. And then finally, I also realized that in that moment, I experienced fear. And that at times, I was operating without even realizing I was under fear. I was taking decisions. Okay, and I didn't realize that. Okay, when I went back and I had conversations with these officers, and they said, "How did you feel?" Of course, first they blasted me for the errors, and they ensured that I would not repeat those mistakes, right? But then after that, these officers sat with me and really checked in. What did you feel? How was that experience for you? And I could share it with them, how that experience was. I was very excited. Maybe there was some fear. Maybe there was some equal excitement also. Okay. And I think once I was able to share that, then I was able to reach a state where from then on, subsequently, when I start going in operations, I would first check in and notice I'm feeling whatever, anxiety, stress, fear. Okay. I would first relax myself. Just notice that I'm feeling it, relax myself, and it takes hardly a few seconds. But then after that, what happens is your mind begins to work. And then you can think, okay, you're seeing some people there. No, don't open fire. First, let's send people to block it. So even in such a situation, your mind is ticking, right? You're thinking, okay, let's do like this, let's do like this. Otherwise, what happens is in fear, we stop thinking. And then in that moment, we just rushedly take a decision without even considering whether that decision is good or not. Okay. And one of the biggest differences that all officers and commanders, not only in my unit, but in the other special forces unit, in fact, in the entire armed forces, I would say, one big difference that almost all officers and soldiers would share is this shift in maturity. Learning how to sense what you're experiencing within, being okay with it, and then relaxing it. And the moment you relax it, your mind opens up and you begin to think again. And all wars that get won, all brilliant actions that get taken, that gets taken when you have begun to understand yourself well and then continue to take your decisions. So that's I think a slightly longish answer, but I wanted to give you a flavor of that.
Can you please talk about your service tenure, like between 2001 to 2004, where like there was a time that terrorists were more active near to the line of control, and there you serve in that period. So can you please tell us about that situation and how you overcome that situation and terrorize the terrorist? So can you please talk about those?
Yeah, so if I have to just share a bit, right, what I would say is if you look at, I mean, just go on online and just type in the statistics of violence in Kashmir, in JNK, you will notice that the late 90s, right, the 90s of course were heavy, but the late 90s to early 2000s had among the highest levels of violence. And when I say violence, there were thousands of terrorists. In fact, that was one of the reasons there were so many terrorists in Kashmir that even Musharraf thought that he will do Kargil and there will be so many terrorists and they will actually sabotage many things inside JNK, and then, you know, maybe he might actually take away a part of it, right? That's what he gave him the confidence. There was a lot of terrorism there. And if you look at that time, even in terms of the civilians who died because of terrorist violence, number of security forces casualties, it was really, really high. Okay. And I recall at that point, a lot of units, especially in Jammu side also, there was a lot of terrorist violence, right? This entire area around Poonch, Rajouri, okay? And while I can't share the exact specifics with you, what I can say is that's the time a lot of special forces units were put in there, okay? And many of them broke new territories. There were places in the Pir Panjal mountains where terrorists had even built fortifications, like bunkers there. And that is where Operation Sarpinash was launched at that time, okay? And what I can share is that because of the operations that were launched there, and not just operations, in fact, that was an operation, a method to break the confidence of the terrorists. Otherwise, what had really happened was because they had grown in force across JNK, they had become very emboldened. So in fact, there are certain operations that happened there where terrorists attacked army units and army units have lost 20 soldiers dead in terrorism, not a war. Officers, like for example, in Surankot, if you look at that duration, the early 2000s, almost every unit in this place called Surankot in Poonch, every unit had lost at least one officer and maybe at least a dozen soldiers due to terrorist violence. So you can imagine the terrorist confidence was high and the military confidence was low. That's when they brought in the commandos to say, come on, we've got to break their back. And I think the actions that were taken at that point, systematically, we started launching operations. We started going into the core, those areas where they thought that this is like the Wild West, right? Okay, the villagers, everything, they were like Wild West. We can do anything over there. That's the point. They thought they had subdued the army, but when the special forces came in, they didn't know where we came out from. 3 terrorists dead there. Immediately within 2 hours, 5 terrorists dead here. Okay, then they would come to collect the bodies. They would think that the army is moved out. They would come to collect the bodies. We would again be hiding, and again we would knock off 3 more terrorists. Right, so they didn't know what was hitting them, right? Where all special forces people were coming. Okay, so at a point of time, what started happening was the terrorists started getting terrorized. Okay, and that is when the tide turned. So when all the top commanders, they started losing, the tide turned, and then it became such that then after a point of time, even the local units started going and doing phenomenal operations. A few were doing it earlier, but now everybody started getting the confidence. At a point, even the police forces started going and striking, right? And finally, it reached a stage where today, if you go to Surankot, there are village defense committees. Okay, so the villagers themselves, the women, the men have been trained. They've been given weapons. They are protecting their own villages. Which is where once the army was struggling to where now villagers are protecting themselves. Right? So that's a huge shift. This is what commandos accomplish. They transform a situation. Okay, and if you are the kind of commando in your family, your organization, that is what you are capable of in any situation. Okay, if you follow these principles of what it takes to be a commando or a commando unit, you will begin to turn the situation to your favor. Yeah? So I'm hoping this makes sense.
Wow, actually, that is like, that is the reason like why our armed forces officers are like so special, and people need to accept them with the care and affections, and the kind of the sacrifice they are doing is priceless, and we cannot match to that level at any point in time. So I think I hope
I have a slight bit here, which is what I would say is, of course,
people who are going into the armed forces have very strong values because of which they go there. And they live those values of honesty, integrity, loyalty to the nation. They have all those values. That's why they're going there. But where do they come from? Who are their parents? Their parents are civilians, right? Maybe a shopkeeper, maybe a bank officer, maybe working in an IT company, maybe working in a government agency, maybe a laborer, a farmer. So where did those children who joined the special forces, where did they get their values from? From their parents. And I want to just take this moment to acknowledge that every citizen in this country who's doing a great job, who's living with integrity, with courage, putting in their best, they are inspiring their children to become commanders, to become fighter pilots, to become soldiers, officers, and reach the highest levels. Why? Because of the values they carry. So I'm actually saying that, I'm paying a lot of respect to everybody who's out there. Okay, because of the values you carry, your children are getting inspired to become commanders. That's what I would like to share.
True, sir. True. I'm speechless about that because the way the points you add here is like it's quite relatable. So,
what is it that makes a commando a commando? What is it that makes a commando unit a commando unit? Okay, and I share these 4 attributes. Okay, which is unique. If you carry this, whether you're in the commandos, whether you're in any field, government, corporate sector, social organization, you're a mother, father, brother, sister, any place in the world, any role you're playing, you're an Anganwadi worker, if you use these 4 attributes, your life will transform. Now, what